Good morning and welcome to Tell Me a Story. This is presented by Affidian magazine, and Affidian magazine will be launching its first issue in September 2023. I will be putting up a link soon so you could sign up for a free digital issue, and everyone is welcome to sign up. And today, in our Tell Me a Story, we have Gail Dixon. Gail Dixon is a speaker, author, and coach who guides people to hear and express the heart's voice that gives their life meaning and purpose. Gail is recognized as a top expert for speakers, thought leaders, and mission driven entrepreneurs in creating messages that make an impact. As leader of the Heart's Voice movement, Gail is committed to creating a future where the heart's voice is the universal language that heals the world. Welcome, Gail. So excited to have you on our first episode.
I'm thrilled to be here, Karina. Thanks so much for having me.
So I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor and please inspire us.
Okay. Okay. So, Mark Twain once said that the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why. So, I'm going to tell you a story about the day I figured out why. I spent most of my career being what I call the well trusted number two, the person who amplified and magnified other people's messages. And I did this in the world of training and technical assistance for addiction and social work professionals. I did a lot of conference speaking, a lot of writing of courses, a lot of writing presentations for other people and making them look good. One day, I was standing at a podium at a conference, and it was my job to persuade the audience about why substance abuse prevention was as important to invest in as substance abuse treatment. A worthy message, to be sure. So, head up, shoulders back, striding up to the podium with confidence, I opened my mouth to speak, and not a word came out. Not one single word. I tried to take a deep breath to start again, and nothing came out. One more time, and I realized I was in real trouble. I passed a note quickly to my boss, who was sitting next to the podium, saying, "Take over," and walked off the stage and promptly collapsed. After being rushed to the hospital, what we figured out was that my diaphragm, that muscle that pushes air in and out through your lungs, was mostly paralyzed, and I couldn't get a deep breath. I spent 2.5 years living my life at the end of an oxygen hose, confined to my desk, no longer able to stand at the podium to say my words or anybody else's for that matter. I could still write, I could still be useful, but I wasn't using the thing that I had held most precious, which was my voice. And I did what so many of us do when we're in a crisis. I did some bargaining with God. Call it universe, spirit, whatever, was something bigger than myself. That if I ever had the voice to speak and to get up and speak against people, I was going to make that voice count for something. So, in that time that I was on oxygen. I had a concentrator at home and a concentrator at work and portable tanks in between. I really did a lot of thinking about how I was using my voice and was wondering, honestly, whether how I was right then was as good as it was ever going to get, or if I was going to get better, and or if I was going to get worse. I didn't know what life had in store for me, but I knew I hadn't yet done what I was here to do. I was lucky. My diaphragm improved just a little bit, and I did the right therapies to help me use ancillary muscles of breathing. And as you can see, I now have the breath to speak. Not a lot. I'm not going to do a 4-day event standing on my feet, but enough to make a difference. And in that time, what I realized was that though I was really good at amplifying other people's messages, I had a message of my own. And that was really the message that I wanted to spend what I now knew was so precious, which is my very breath. That's the message I was meant to send. So that message is that language is a sacred gift and it needs to be used for good. That all of us have deep, deep within us a little piece of sacred truth that we're meant to live into being in the world. One message that uniquely belongs to us, that source placed in us as we were created, and that it's our contract with the divine to live into being and to speak into being. And for me, it got a name. And that, the naming of it, is what gave it power. I was attending a retreat and doing an exercise, a journaling exercise that we were assigned to do. And the prompt at the top was, I am. And we were supposed to write and fill in as much as we could right after the I am. And I wrote all the standard things. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a writer, I'm a godmother to my beloved goddaughter, Janie. I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a Christian, I'm a this, all of that. And at the end, I wrote something that blew my socks off and has taken me on the journey that I'm on today. And what I wrote was, I am the heart's voice. I didn't really know what it meant at the time, but it felt absolutely true. And what I discovered was that as I thought about it, the heart has a unique voice, the voice of love and compassion and caring and connection. And that out in the world, we hear a lot of other voices, voices of greed or anger or aggression, loss, lack, fear, grief, pain. But the voice that's most important for us to hear is the heart's voice, the voice of love. Because love ultimately is the reality, is the thing we're all going and growing toward. And if we don't hear that voice, speak that voice, listen to that voice, how do we ever move toward the love that we need to share in the world and be in the world. And so what I knew was I was meant to be the spokesperson, the voice for the heart's voice. And that's why I've created the Heart's Voice movement, to celebrate the people who stand up and speak out and use their voices for good, to hold up the example of what it means to claim your voice in the world, and to use the power of language and listening for the well-being of self and others. So I'm working at building that movement, inviting people to finding their own heart's voice and living it into being. And what I know is that when I named the heart's voice to me, that's when I began to know what it was meant to do, and how I needed to do it. There's tremendous power in the naming of something. And I think about the creation myths of every religious tradition in the world. And there is part of that myth that talks about the source, the divine, assigning names to the various creations, to the oceans and the skies and the seas and the animals. And once those things have their names, they know their purpose. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about finding your heart's voice. Once you know your little piece of the great truth that is love, how do you name it? How do you give it words that allow you to share it with other people? Because if we can't say it, nobody else can see it. If we can't say it, we can't share it. And make no mistake, this is about sharing. We're not meant to do this life alone. We're not meant to be separate. We're meant to be together. So we have to find the words to express what that message that gives our life meaning is all about. And when I first started, I was really working with folks and calling together folks that were what I would call mission-driven entrepreneurs or movement makers, people who had a big cause, a big, I want to change the world in this way cause. And what I've come to realize is that that's the heart's voice with a capital H, a capital V. Stand out there and say, we need to end poverty. We need to have racial equality. We need equal justice. That's the heart's voice with a big H and a big V. But there's also a heart's voice with a little h and a little v. And that's the way all of us move through our days in the kind and quality of the relationships we establish. We speak the heart's voice when we speak encouragement to a child. We speak the heart's voice when we talk to a service person, a clerk in the grocery store, or a server in the restaurant, and we call them by the name on their name tag instead of the more anonymous Miss or Sir. We speak the heart's voice when we offer a word of comfort to somebody who's hurting. And we listen to the heart's ear when we sit next to someone in silence and hear them talk about their reality and about what's happening for them. Imagine what it feels like to someone who goes through life unseen and unheard to finally have someone who really listens to them, hears beneath whatever surface stuff in their life makes people distance from them, hears beneath the problem to see the possibility, hears beneath the discouragement to see the achievement, to see the aspiration. If you've ever been the person who was finally seen, finally heard, and finally listened to, you know that that's what the heart's voice can do. You know that that's what being the heart's voice is all about. And because we live in a world where those other voices claim a lot of airspace, just think about how we construct our news broadcasts in the world. The rubric for news broadcasts is if it bleeds, it leads. Why do we focus on that? Imagine how much better you'd feel if you started your day with a news broadcast that brought you the good news, the positive news, not just as a little aside and a little boost, but as the main focus of the newscast. Here's where things are changing for the good. Here's where people who are doing good things and caring about their neighbors. Here's what you can do to lift yourself up. Wouldn't that change the world for us? Wouldn't that make a difference? And I firmly believe in that theory of the 100th monkey, that theory that when there is a critical mass of people doing, thinking, feeling, being a certain way, we can change the collective dialogue. We can make the heart's voice the language that heals the world if we come together. And that's why I invite people to join me in the Heart's Voice movement. It's just as simple as promising yourself and the world to speak and listen with the heart's voice, and to support others in doing the same, to recognize it when you see others doing it, to connect with people. When you use language and listening to create, connect, and enliven rather than to divide, and destroy, that's when you're using the heart's voice. And the more of us that do it, the better the world will be.
Oh my goodness. Woo! I can't even imagine what that experience could have been not having words. I live by words. I love words. Um, especially being a publisher, being a writer, words is a lot. It's one thing to write, but it's something to, I mean, it's all about expression, right?
Mhm.
So I can't imagine that moment of not just the words, but that the fear of, oh my goodness, I can't really actually breathe
Right,
either. My
right.
goodness, like, wow. I was not expecting this story, but wow, thank you. Thank you because you just used your voice.
I did, and I am grateful every day for the return of breath that allows me to do it.
I sometimes I realize, they're always saying, oh, you got to breathe for meditation and focus on the breath. But I don't think we take our breathing for granted because it's so automatic that it takes someone to go through what you went through to realize, oh my goodness, the breath isn't automatic. Something could go wrong there. And how do I fix this? What do I need to do? I need to step back and take a really good look.
Right.
Body, mind, and soul, right?
Right. And, it's just a testimony to the fact that the gifts that we have, the talents that we have, the things that are born into us are meant to be used for good in the world. And so often we don't see those for ourselves, or other people don't see them in us.
Right.
And we live for the external
Yes.
seeing, the external appearances. And what we really need to see is the sacredness inside us.
Yes. 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 And yes. Thank you so much for being my first guest on Tell Me a Story. And you told us a story, very inspiring, very transformational. And like I said, I wanted to do something that was about just reaching people. And like I said, being the publisher of a magazine for so many years, I read many stories. And that's where I saw so many transformation. And this is kind of where this idea came from. And I
Well, I'm,
just
I'm thrilled to be
I
part of it.
know, and reading is fun, but just the actual speaking in your own voice, in your own person, and again, like I said, if you haven't read the link, Gail Dixon will be one of our spotlight features in the upcoming issue of Affidian magazine. So if you haven't gotten your copy yet, please sign up. It's on the link, and you can get a free digital copy. You could also subscribe for actually hard copies that we'll have mailed to you. So again, one more time, Gail, thank you so much for coming on, and we will be in touch, of course.
All right.
And the links again, you can reach out to Gail. I will put all the information there as well. Thank you again very much, Gail.
Thank you, Karina. And just one parting word, which is speaking from the heart is an act of courage. Listening with the heart is an act of love. Have courage, be love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes, and that was the first episode of Tell Me a Story. And if you have a story to tell, please log on, send me a note. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to share your story with our audience. We all can use an uplifting moment in life. And again, thank you, Gail. Thank you to our audience and our viewers. And this will be on demand streaming on tv.affidianinc.com, where you will be seeing most of our other upcoming programs as we build out the Affidian Network TV channel. So, looking forward to seeing all of you. I am Karina Felix. Namaste. Thank you.